record at 3:10 p.m.
All right, we have our next witness, Erica Rivera, present with us. Ms. Rivera, again, I am Administrative Judge Martha Russo, and I have been assigned to adjudicate this appeal. You have been asked to provide testimony in the matter of Sylviane Kouemo versus the Small Business Administration. While you're testifying here today, please answer all the questions orally and make sure you keep your voice raised so we can all hear your testimony and we can accurately capture it for the record. In addition, if an objection is raised to a question while you're testifying, please wait for me to rule on the objection before you start answering the question, and I'll tell you whether or not to continue with the response. I do need to swear you in before you testify, so if you would please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. Ms. Rivera, would you please state and spell your first and last names?
Erica Rivera, E-R-I-C-A-R-I-V-E-R-A.
Are you a current employee of the SBA?
Yes, I am.
In what position?
A supervisory attorney.
How long have you been a supervisory attorney at the SBA?
About 5 years.
All right, Ms. Kouemo.
Hello, Mrs. Rivera. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. Ms. Rivera, I'm going to start by asking you, do you recall basically me being under your leadership in 2020 while I was employed at the SBA?
Yes, I did.
Meaning, I didn't face that question right, but I want to ask, do you recall the events surrounding, for instance, my assignment to your team and things like that?
Yes, I do recall that you were on my team in 2020.
Okay. I would like to start with, please, tab number 9. And we can go to page number 72.
Okay. Okay, I believe I'm there.
This is regarding my sick leave, and you can scroll down if you wish to. Let me see. Page number 80, all the way to page. Basically, this is the email conversations. The conversation that I had with you and with Mr. Montgomery regarding my sick leave request. Do you recall those incidents?
I do recognize the email, yes.
Okay. Do you remember why, for instance, on June 24th, why you asked me to provide you with return to work authorization from the doctor on page 74.
I don't see an email from me or an exchange from me on page 74.
Okay. It says it's actually from Mr. Scott Montgomery, and it says, Sylviane, please be advised. Do you see that email?
Yes, I do.
The last sentence says, "This is per our supervisory attorney."
And you were out for 3 consecutive days, is that correct?
That was my 3rd day, yes.
Okay. So after 3 days,
I'm going to jump in real quick. I just want to make it clear that this isn't a conversation between Ms. Rivera and Ms. Kouemo. So it's only an opportunity for Ms. Kouemo to direct questions to Ms. Rivera, not vice versa. So I just want to make sure that's clear to both parties, but you can continue with your answer, Ms. Rivera.
After 3 consecutive days of being out on sick leave, we do ask for a return to work release note from a medical provider, yes.
Do you typically ask that return to work note on the 3rd day or on the 4th day?
After 3 consecutive days of being out, we look for a return to work note from your healthcare provider.
Okay. If you go up to page 73, and if you look at the email that Mr. Scott sent at the bottom, it says that I should contact you. Do you confirm that you made that request?
Based on the totality of the email, that would be a request that I would make.
Okay. Do you typically ask that people that are out sick or that are at the emergency room contact you?
Due to the time frame in when all of this happened and potential COVID exposure, it is typical that we ask employees standard COVID related questions, and that would be something I as a supervisor would want to speak directly to the employee about, to ask them about potential COVID exposure, potential last interaction between an SBA or an SBA office.
Okay. Do you remember whether I was working remotely or on site at that point in time?
I do not.
Would you have known at that time whether I was working remotely or on site?
I would not know the last time that you had been on site or the last time that you may have had contact with another SBA employee.
So is it your testimony that as my supervisor, my team supervisor, you would have known when I started working remotely?
I would not know the last time that you might have been in the office or been in contact with another SBA employee.
Okay. Were there reasons why I'm going to ask you to please scroll up to page 72.
Okay.
Where you asked whether I was. I mean, you can read the conversation yourself, but so do you still, is it still your testimony that those repeated contacts were necessary at that time?
I would have needed to know your last time in the office and the last time you had had a contact with an SBA employee if there was a risk of additional COVID exposure here to the office or additional SBA employees.
Okay. Could that information, do you see the timestamp on that in that last email on page 72, on that last email on page 72?
Can you clarify which email, please?
Yes, on page 72, the email from you to my Gmail account.
Okay.
Would you please read the timestamp on that email?
10:56 a.m.
Okay. And if you scroll back down to my conversation with Mr. Scott Montgomery on page 74, do you see the time? If you scroll down, I think the second email on that page, do you see the timestamp of that email conversation?
I see two timestamps on page 74.
Okay, what are those timestamps, please?
One is 7:30 a.m. and one is 4:50 a.m.
Would you be, is it your belief that if I had COVID, that you had to have that information that morning or that exact right away?
I don't understand your question.
Was me the request to contact you, was it so urgent that it couldn't have waited later in the day or the next day?
Are you asking if I should have delayed in contacting you? I don't understand the question.
Yes, that's basically what I'm asking. Could you have delayed in contacting me? Basically, could you have stopped at asking Mr. Montgomery that I provide a doctor's note to return to work, or that I contact you later on? Could you have just specified to contact you later on? Could me contacting you back? Could that have waited like until I got out of the ER later that day or the next day?
We try our best not to delay in following up with employees and getting back with employees. So I try to be as timely as possible in response to the needs of the team leads and the needs of the staff.
Okay. I'm going to move on to same document, page 81.
Okay, I believe I'm there.
Okay, if you look through page from 81 to 85, I just want to refresh your memory, and then I'm going to ask you more questions. What I was going to ask you was regarding my leave request on July 17, 2020, or on July 9, 2020. Did you have any concerns regarding those requests? And I think that's summarized on page 83.
Can you rephrase or explain the question?
Yes. Actually, no, because I think I forgot. But I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you a more direct question, maybe. Can you explain, if you recall those leave requests? Can you please explain why you denied them?
If they were annual leave requests, annual leave should be pre-approved, and then it should be considered as to whether it's going to be pre-approved or not. So if an annual leave request is not pre-approved, it should be escalated up to higher level supervisors for review and consideration. And we also ask for additional information on why the employee was away without leave at that point in time to see if we can address what those possible concerns are and how we should handle that absence.
How many people at a time roughly did you have under your leadership at the PC?
A few hundred.
And were they all working overtime and 12 hours day, 10 to 12 hour days, 6 days a week?
After people are onboarded and get through that initial training time, that is what the expectation is, or was. Everybody should be working the same time frame, yes.
Okay. And how many, in a typical week, or say in a typical month, you can answer either way, how many, say, annual leave requests did you get at that time?
I don't recall. That was over a year ago, so I don't recall.
Your experience as a supervisor during the height of disaster when people are working 60 hours a week, roughly what percentage of people under your leadership request some type of leave on a weekly basis? If you have to estimate, you don't have to give a specific, like an exact number, but if you have to estimate what's the percentage of people typically that will request a leave?
Are you asking, can you clarify the question? Do you mean today or back then?
Generally speaking. Today, say today.
Very few people on an average day ask for leave.
Okay, when you say very few people on an average day, do you forward all those requests? If they are for events that have already passed, do you forward all those requests to your supervisors?
Annual leave requests that have not been pre-approved should be reviewed by a higher level supervisor.
Yes, but do you always forward them to a supervisor?
To my recollection, anytime I get an annual leave request that was requested after the fact, it's then reviewed by an additional supervisor, yes.
And do you have any way when you forward those requests as to whether they should be approved or not? When you forward those requests to your supervisors, do you have any say at all to indicate to your supervisors whether those requests should be approved or not?
I provide them the information that's provided to me and the facts that are provided to me so they can consider that information.
Okay. And so would you please, I don't know if I asked that question before, maybe that's a question I forgot, but do you remember why you denied all of my annual leave requests at that time, or LWOP requests?
The leave requests were forwarded to a higher level supervisor to make the determination on how those requests would be handled.
Okay.
Who was that supervisor, Ms. Rivera?
Bruce Chung.
Thank you. If you please go to
page 95 of the same document.
Okay.
And those are just some details about one of those sentences when I'm not this. Okay, so based on, do you remember what these emails were about?
You said page 95?
Yes.
I don't show that I was on that email chain.
Okay. Were you provided that information in another email chain?
I don't recognize this email.
Okay. Can we please go to page number Actually, we're going to go to another. If you want to please leave that document open, we're going to go to number 37.
Okay, I have 37 open now.
And then we can go to page number 25. And if you please go down to page number 26, we're going to start there.
Okay.
I would like to ask you, do you remember drafting these emails? I mean, this email specifically?
I don't recall drafting it, but it does look like an email I would have drafted.
Okay. And in the first sentence, you do mention, based on the first sentence in this email, where you indicated that I had to be placed on the team for retraining. What did you mean by that?
Production was not at expectations. A determination could not be made on if it was an Excel issue, if it was a rapid issue. So we moved you to a team where a more experienced person could spend some more time and see if we could get the production where it needed to be, and if we could move you to another team where I can keep you on that team.
Okay. Is it your testimony that you moved me to the data entry team to make room for a more experienced person to handle the duties I was handling?
Can you clarify the question in relation to a data entry team?
Yes. Is it your testimony that you moved me to the funding triage team? That you moved me off of the larger funding group into the smaller funding triage team in order to make room for people to be for more experienced people to handle the duties I was handling before. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay. What would you please try and explain, maybe in different terms, what you meant by me being placed on a team for training, please?
We moved you to a team with a more experienced lead who could work with you, who could figure out, is there some little thing that we could work with you on to improve your overall production?
And when you move me to that team, are you talking about the funding triage team?
There's a number of funding triage teams. I'm specifically referring to the team that you asked about.
Okay. And so the role of my team lead at the time, who was Miss Holloway. I'm sorry, I'm testifying again. Sorry. So who was my team lead at the time on the new team?
The team I believe that you're speaking about is Carol Holloway's team. She was our good, experienced lead.
Okay. And what were her assignments when you move her? Did you move her to? Did you choose her to be a team lead on that team?
I know I wanted her as a team lead to help work with people who may be struggling. I'm not sure if she was already one of my team leads at that time or not.
Okay. And when she became a team lead for that team, did you give her any instructions at all on how to perform her team lead duties for that team specifically?
She was a very experienced team lead. I don't recall our conversations in relation to getting that team going.
Okay. And during my time on that team and under your leadership, did you have conversations with Miss Holloway regarding my work performance?
It would have been standard practice for me to have conversations with the team lead in relation to employees' production. I don't specifically recall if I had conversations specifically related to your specific production.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you. So the next question, based on the first sentence of that email, it says that I struggled with production and following directions. What do you mean by those two things?
Well, I know that your production was low, and I don't recall exactly in relation to directions what that portion of that sentence was. This was over a year ago, but I do recall that there were some production concerns.
And do you recall exactly what were those production concerns? Can you give me an example?
I don't know if it is in any of these documents, but we track production on how many funding files people are able to resolve within RAPID, and whether they are resolving those funding files correctly and completing tasks within the RAPID system correctly, as well as properly documenting the Excel tracking sheets.
Okay. And right before I was transferred to the funding triage team, did the SBA system had the system you were working on for a funding group, did it have any issues at all?
Can you elaborate more on which funding triage team you're speaking about?
So, the team under Miss Holloway's team leadership, when I was right before I was transferred to her leadership, I mean to her being my team lead, the assignment before, in order to complete it, we had to use a system, didn't we?
The system that was being used on the other funding triage team, the RAPID system, would be the same RAPID system that was being utilized by Carol Holloway's team.
Yes. But did that system during the weeks or so prior to me being transferred to the new to Mrs. Holloway's team, did that system have any issues at all?
Well, that system really did not contemplate the robustness that we typically have in the disaster loan program. which is why we had to operate a lot and still do out of Excel spreadsheets and out of additional utilities. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, and I'm going to be a little more specific in my questioning. Did the system have any latency issues?
I don't know. Has our system experienced latency, or our networks experienced latency in the past? Yes. Was it during that time frame? I don't know.
Were latency issues using the system that we were using to complete work affect people's performance, or how much say that? Yes, work performance, or their the number of files that they completed in a day?
If we had overall system latency, then yes, overall, all users would be impacted by the latency issues. Potentially, yes.
Okay. And did you at any time, before I ask that question, when somebody is out, meaning out sick or on leave, or when somebody is not basically not at work on a day, does that time period when they are not performing work because they are not at work still included in the basically is the fact that the production stay for a day when they are out sick will be zero, computed when totaling the number of hours or the number of product or the files that they've completed?
The way our metrics traditionally works is if you work 10 hours, we expect 10 hours of production. If you're not working that day, then no, we do not expect production on a day when you're not in pay status.
When you say when you're not in pay status, do you mean when you're not at work, or do you mean when you're not when somebody's taking sick leave, for instance, or annual leave? Would that be included in as being in pay status?
If you're out of the office and not during work hours, then no, we do not anticipate production.
And did you at any time inform me that when I was under Mr. Scott Montgomery's leadership, or when I was under Ms. Holloway's leadership, that I was having performance issues?
Scott Montgomery indicated that he had talked to the staff that were struggling on production within his team.
Could you please elaborate on that? How did he indicate that?
He indicated to me that he had talked to the people, that he had worked with the people who might be struggling. I do not recall if I specifically had a conversation with you in relation to your production at that time.
Okay. And did he tell you how to talk to those people?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did he tell you who those people were?
He provided information on the staff who may need additional assistance and training.
Okay. And when we were sent to the funding triage team, what type of training did we receive on that team?
Can you be more specific about which team?
The one where Ms. Holloway was a team lead. What type of training? And I think you used another word when speaking earlier. Guidance, not guidance, but what type of assistance or training did we receive regarding work production when we were on under Ms. Holloway's leadership?
Carol Holloway would be better able to answer that question. I know you would have received the initial funding training, and I know you would have received additional one-on-one training, but Carol Holloway would be better able to provide what additional training was provided to that team.
Okay. What was the assignment of the team? Can you please describe the assignment of the team that Mr. Montgomery led? What exactly were we doing?
Funding tasks, bank rejects, bank returns, loans that were failing to fund, or loans that the bank rejected funding on.
If you had to explain to a 5 years old what those people were doing in a few sentences, what would you say?
I would say that if the SBA tried to send money to a bank and the bank returned it for whatever reason, those were the population of files that group works on.
And what specifically was that group doing as far as step by step? I mean, if you can summarize the steps, but just so we have an indication as to what exactly the task was on that team, please.
That was at the very beginning of the project. That team has continued to grow a little bit, evolve a little bit. So I can tell you what that team is doing now, but I can't swear that is exactly what that team was doing a year and a half ago. So I can give you a high level what overall that team was doing, but some of the exact nuances, pieces of exactly what they are doing today may be slightly different than what they were doing a year and a half ago.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a more direct question then. Were the members on that team resolving issues in files or trying to resolve issues in files and contacting applicants by email and phone and applying various rules that you or other supervisors provided in that regard?
That team was trying to fix funding tasks where banks return files. Yes, borrowers were contacted and documents were obtained in an effort to accomplish that task.
Okay. And in the team where Ms. Holloway was the team lead, I will go ahead and ask, would it be fair, would it be accurate to say that we pulled loan files from a spreadsheet and opened them? I'm sorry, would you please provide us a short description of what that task consisted of?
That group also worked funding task files the same way the other team did. Those would have been files that needed to be triaged to determine how the loan should properly be routed, how it should be addressed. I believe that team worked in a mailbox in order to get those files assigned out and rapidly worked. Those were traditionally harder files that needed more immediate attention, so that they could get addressed in the most timely manner as possible.
Okay. Were people on that team actually resolving or attempting to resolve any issues in the file?
Not at that time.
My next question is, on page 30 of the same document,
I'm there.
Okay. Do you recall, and if you scroll down a little bit, do you recall a conversation with Miss Isabigi and Mr. Shang regarding termination?
I believe that was I do not believe I was involved in that exchange.
Okay. Actually, let's scroll down a little bit, please. Page 41. Sorry, that might not be yesterday's decision. Page 41. And do you see the emails? Do you recall those emails?
I don't believe I was on any of those email chains.
Were you not made aware of the content of those conversations at all?
Typically, if my supervisors have conversations with their supervisors, they may tell me the end results, but I don't typically get involved with all the detailed conversations that happen at that level, and I don't recognize these emails.
Okay, on page 42, the email from Mr. Martin to Mr. Shang, and including you, Mr. Booth also including you, do you recall seeing this email?
It looks like an email I would have been involved in, yes.
Okay. Are the facts stated in this email accurate?
To the best of my knowledge.
Okay. And in the first paragraph, and the last sentence of that paragraph, I'm sorry, not even the last sentence. Would you please read to yourself? You don't have to read it out loud, but would you please read to yourself the second sentence of the first paragraph? From the second sentence to the last sentence of the first paragraph, and then before you're done, let me know and I'm going to ask you a question about that.
Okay, what is, I've read it.
Okay. With this email and any recollection of the events surrounding these events, was even though annual leave was being denied, was LWOP recommended by ODC and agreed to by some other managers?
I don't believe that there was a recommendation for leave without pay. There was just an indication that leave without pay might be an option that the office might be able to explore, but I do not believe that there was a recommendation by OTC to go the route of leave without pay.
Okay. Okay. And the second paragraph says it should be the first sentence of the second paragraph. Do you agree that when Mr. Martin and you call me to discuss my leave request, that you made, you were the first, that you were the supervisor that took the initiative of indicating that I would be considered AWOL instead of any other leave request that I made?
Can you rephrase the question?
Yes. Between Mr. Martin and you regarding this issue, who had the fingers to two of you, who had the final say so as to which leave will be approved?
Neither one of us. It was something that was pushed up to our supervisors to make a final determination in relation to what leave would be allocated.
Okay. Okay. And do you remember drafting a letter of counseling? For me, mainly for me.
I don't know that I drafted a letter of counseling for you.
Okay. You should scroll back. On page 38, if we go back to page 38.
Okay.
So I'm looking for any email. Any email about where you are actually assisted. I think it's somewhere here. Okay, I'm just going to ask you. Did Mr. Shan ask that you provide me with counseling, a letter of counseling regarding my performance?
I know a letter of counseling was discussed, and I know that we discussed what would be contained in that letter of counseling.
Okay, I found the email address, page 34.
Okay.
And when Mr. Shan asked, please make sure we counsel employee performance, how did you follow up with that as far as putting in practice?
The time in question, July 24th of 2020, I believe, is when the employee was between two different teams.
Okay, so are you saying that it wasn't your responsibility to counsel me on performance at that point in time?
I'm saying that's what the email on on page 34 is indicating, is trying to determine who was going to do the warning letter.
Was Mr. Martin answering to you at any time in August, in July or August 2020?
Can you rephrase the question?
Yes. Did Mr. Martin and you, do you have the exact same level of did you have the exact same level of responsibility, of roles and responsibilities regarding regarding the funding team?
Chris Martin and I are at the same supervisory level.
Okay. Did you choose Mr. Martin to? Did you select or did you have anything to do with Mr. Martin becoming the supervisor for the funding triage team that I was on with Miss Holloway?
As a supervisory attorney at the same level as Chris Martin, I wouldn't determine the roles or functions that he would serve. It would be our supervisor to determine which roles that we would serve.
Did you have any input with managers as to who will serve as team lead on that team?
Can you rephrase the question?
Did you have any input at all as to whether Mr. Martin will be selected or assigned to that team?
I don't recall that. That traditionally wouldn't be a role I would serve.
Okay. I am going to go to I'm going to ask you before we move on. Are you aware of any counseling that Mr. Martin or anyone else did with me regarding work performance after that July 24th time frame?
I don't recall.
Still in the same documents. Can we go to 47, please, page 47? And you can scroll down to the next page. I just want to show you those emails and ask you, did you ask Ms. Soto to provide you some information about, specifically about me?
That email looks like it was in response to something that she brought up to me as a concern. I don't recall this specific email exchange, but based on the email, it looks like this was an issue that she had brought to my attention.
Okay. When I was on the triage team with Miss Holloway as team lead, were you responsible? Were you one of my supervisors?
I believe I was a supervisor when that team initially formed, and then I believe that team was under Chris Martin.
And when the team went into Mr. Martin's leadership, did you retain any type of authority regarding the team as far as, for instance, approving time?
Time is done in WebTA. So in WebTA, if someone is still under my name in WebTA as a supervisor, they're still allocated under my name in WebTA as a supervisor. I'm not sure when that transition happened within WebTA.
Okay. Let me go to page 50. I'm sorry, I don't even know if you need to be there. I'm just going to ask you real quick. I see the email from Mr. Holloway. I'm sorry, from Mr. Monroe on this page. But when you scroll down, Ms. Rivera, it looks like you are the one that control the funding triage workbook spreadsheet. Is that correct?
Are you on page 50 of tab 37?
53, I'm sorry, that's the 50. Let's go down to 53. Yes, it starts at 50, but then you scroll down, and then you can get to 53, and we're going to start then move up.
So what was the question? I'm sorry.
And my question is, did you have control? Are you the one that control the funding triage workbook, the Excel?
What we had to do, because Rapid did not have a way for us to do what we need to do within the system, and based on overall system limitations, we had to be creative and come up with solutions. So the solution we came up with was utilizing OneDrive to create a shared Excel spreadsheet. So we had probably at that time 20 to 30 shared Excel spreadsheets. Now we probably have over 100 shared Excel spreadsheets. Each Excel spreadsheet can usually host about 150 users at a time. At that time, we were housing almost all shared spreadsheets on my OneDrive. Now we've been able to transition the shared spreadsheets into Teams, but I believe at that time it was just a convenience of housing them within my OneDrive so that our staff could have access.
Can I ask you, Ms. Rivera, based on your experience as a supervisor and your general experience at the SBA, would you be aware of whether things like able determinations, multiple able determinations will play a role on anybody receiving any type of promotion or receiving any type of promotion to a higher grade or any type of reward in that sense?
Can you rephrase the question a little bit?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Actually, I'm going to skip that question. Can we go to document number 10 now, please?
Document 10?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, start 10.
Okay.
And if you go to page 92, please.
Okay.
Do you recall, if you can scroll down all the way down to page 98, I just want to refresh memory about the, using those documents, about the context behind those documents.
I don't recall receiving these documents, and I don't see that I was on these email chains.
No, I just want to refresh your memory regarding the context behind those documents. Basically, for instance, on page 93, you do remember that I was under your leadership in 2017-2018, right?
During a previous disaster on the legal review team.
Yes. Okay. Do you remember how long I was on that team for under your leadership?
No, I do not.
Okay. Would it? Do you confirm? Would you confirm the accuracy of? Actually, what I'm going to ask is, for instance, the document on page 93, where it says request for leave of approve or approval absence. Would you, if you were a supervisor, would you have received that document?
I'm going to object. This is calling for speculation about events years ago.
Ms. Kouemo, can you reframe?
Yes. Miss Rivera, when I was working at the SBA 2017-2018, and that you were my supervisor, would it be surprising, not surprising, but would you be able to explain why you, back then, you approved my leave request for, say, 15 minutes twice and 1 hour without ever requesting any information, explanation, or document?
Objection on relevancy. This is talking about 2017 and 2018, not what's at issue in this appeal.
I'll let her answer. Ms. Rivera, can you answer that question?
I have no recollection of these occurrences from that time frame.
I'm going to rephrase. No, I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if we discussed them. I don't know what exchange may or may not have happened at that time frame, so I can't say.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another question. Have you always, since you'll be I think I've already asked that question at the beginning. I'm not going to ask it again. My next question is going to be, when you denied my leave request, before it was, before annual leave request that I made, did you deny them individually? I mean, separately? Did you consider them separately, or did you consider them as part of a package or for?
I do not believe that the request, the absences all occurred at the same time. They would have been considered separately, but if someone has a situation a week, 2 weeks ago, it would also maybe considered in context with past situations, but again, that would have been a determination made by Bruce Chung and whoever Bruce Chung may have consulted with.
Okay. Really, that answers a lot of questions. I'm going to ask you, Ms. Rivera, when during the early months of the 2020 disaster pandemic, I mean, were you aware of the rules that were applying to loan applicants in general?
Can you be more specific?
Yes. would you at that time be aware of eligibility, meaning from say April 2020 to August 2020? Would you have been aware of rules that or procedures that the SBA had to apply on EIDL business loans for the COVID-19 pandemic?
The accounts department really was not involved in the response. At that time, it was the processing department that was really involved in the response. It wasn't until we started up the funding teams that we really became involved in that process. So if you're talking about loan processing policy and procedures, that's not our department.
Okay. What can I ask you, Ms. Rivera? As supervisor, do you ever what information do you base? First of all, I'm going to ask you: do you evaluate the employees that are under your leadership? Do you evaluate their work performance, or do you assess their work performance on an ongoing basis?
We have quarterly reviews.
Do you assess their work informally outside of the quarterly reviews?
Team leads may provide additional feedback, and if employees need additional assistance, training, counseling, we try and provide that in the most timely manner possible.
Okay. Did you as a supervisor in 2020 had any type of access to people's files, for instance, when they work on files and things like that? Would you have access to those? Meaning the people under your leadership.
Can you rephrase the question?
Yes, what I'm asking is when people are assigned, like when we were assigned to the funding group, did you have any type of access to the files that we were all working in?
I'm going to try and answer that question. Rapid is a system shared by all users that have access. So anyone that has access to Rapid has access to those loan files.
Okay. And who had access to Rapid when I was working, say for example, when I was working under your leadership? When Mr. Montgomery was my team lead, or when Ms. Holloway was my team lead?
If I had to guess, it would be thousands of users between multiple offices across the United States.
And when you say thousands of users, do you mean thousands of SBA users or loan applicants?
Loan applicants have a different interaction with the system through a portal. They are able to upload information, add information to the file. So if you include the applicant's ability to interact with the portal, then it would be millions.
Okay. So when you say thousands, did you mean thousands at the SBA?
Yes.
Okay. And do they all have access to the same type of information in the file?
No.
Okay. Well, if when working on the file, will a supervising attorney above somebody, direct supervising attorney or direct supervisor, have access to everything that the team member has access to?
Within the rapid system, the supervisor should be able to see notations the employee does and tasks the employee completes within the rapid system.
Okay. And when working in rapid during the 2020 under Mr. Montgomery or Ms. Holloway's leadership, do you remember, I don't know if it's still the same thing today, but do you remember whether employees were required to enter notes as far as their interactions with the borrowers or the applicants?
It is part of the SOP that if you have an interaction with the employee, that you document it within the system, whether that be rapid or if you're in 2.0, the 2.0 system. So yes.
Okay. And will that documentation include things like the date and then the content of your conversation with the borrower?
If the file is properly documented and the employee has added a notation / chronological record, then it all depends on what the employee has documented within that file.
Thank you. And how many supervisors did you? How many people were supervisors at PC between the loan processing department and how many departments are there at PC? I'm sorry, just
within the PDC.
Yes.
I'm trying to count. Bear with me. I'll give you, to the best of my knowledge, my ballpark. At least 6.
Okay, thank you. And how many supervisors in total would you say there are between the accounts department and the loan processing department?
I'm sorry, Ms. Kouemo, where are we going with this?
I'm sorry, Judge. I was going to ask basically whether those two departments interacted because I made the first disclosure in one department and the next direct disclosure in one department and the next one in the other department. So I was going to ask, my next question was going to be whether those departments communicated or interacted.
But I think you could ask Ms. Rivera just directly if she had any communications about you with your supervisor when you were in the loan processing department. Would that work?
I could do that.
That'd be excellent.
Thank you, Judge. So, Ms. Rivera, did you have communications with Mr. Montgomery, Scott Winders Biles? Sorry, I probably butchered his name. But did you have any communications with him between April 2020 and say July 2020?
I would have had conversations with him, yes. He's within our department.
Oh, he is an accounts. Okay, all right. Thanks so much for saying that.
Can we clarify, Ms. Rivera, when was it that you were the appellate supervisor? Do you recall the dates?
I believe it was beginning of July to mid to late July of 2020.
And do you know who her supervisor was immediately prior to you?
No, I do not.
Did you receive any information from any supervisor in the loan processing department about Ms. Kouemo?
Other than her name being on the list of about 100 people, or an email chain of about 100 people that were potentially going to come back over to our department? No.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Kouemo.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Rivera, I believe you just said that you became a supervisor in 2020 in early July, but is it not accurate that when the large team moved back to the accounts department, it was actually around June 19?
Give me a second. Let me check my notes.
Hold on, Ms. Rivera. I'm going to ask that you not refer to any documents unless you're pointed to them specifically by a party in this appeal.
Then, Ms. Kouemo, I'm not 100% sure. I know it was around the beginning of July, but you may have something that shows that it predated that a little bit.
Okay. Do you remember when I called in sick when the conversation that we had earlier? Do you remember when the sick leave was? Roughly around now, you don't have to say the exact date, but do you remember whether I had been under your leadership for some time before those events happened?
I don't recall.
Okay. I think that those are all the questions that I had. For Ms. Rivera for now.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Howell, it's your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Rivera.
Afternoon.
You testified earlier that Ms. Kouemo came back to the loan, or back to the accounts department. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you know what department she had been hired into originally?
No, I don't. She would have been hired by the accounts department. Where she started once she onboarded, I don't know.
And I believe you testified about how many people were transferred along with Ms. Kouemo. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you know how many that was?
In or around 100, may have been a little more than 100.
And to your knowledge, were other people within that cohort of 100? Were there also other attorneys in that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge about Ms. Kouemo making any disclosures or raising any questions about rule changes to economic injury disaster loans?
Not to my knowledge.
You testified earlier about Ms. Kouemo's work on Mr. Montgomery's team. Was the work that Mr. Montgomery's team did important to the mission of the SBA?
Yes.
And you also testified about her work on Ms. Holloway's team. Was the work that Ms. Holloway's team did important to the mission of the SBA?
Yes.
You also testified earlier about contacting Ms. Kouemo while she was on sick leave.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that you had to ask her some questions about COVID. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Were those standard questions that you asked to all employees at that time?
Yeah, it was part of the protocol to follow up on potential COVID exposure, yes.
Okay, and Have you contacted other individuals and asked them similar questions?
Yes,
Do you happen to know how many?
20 plus.
Okay. Well, let me rephrase that. At the relevant time in June of 2020, did you ask those questions of an employee regardless of whether the employee was remote or in the office?
Yes.
And why did you ask the same questions whether the employee in question was remote or in the office?
Because we have a lot of different offices around the country and a lot of different employees. We could also potentially have employees that are related, friends with each other. We also had employees that may have been teleworking, but may have needed to come in to get a new badge. They may have had equipment issues. We had several employees that, even though they were remote working, did come back into the office, and they did have to address issues because even though they were teleworking, there was then a subsequent exposure within our office.
In July of 2020, did the Office of Disaster Assistance have a restrictive policy on taking annual leave?
Yes.
Why was that?
It was the beginning and the height of COVID. We were working 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, some of us. And we needed people working and responding and assisting disaster survivors. If someone took annual leave, even if they took annual leave for 30 minutes, in addition to the annual leave they took, which would be the 30 minutes, we actually lost anywhere from 2 additional to 4 additional hours of production and responsiveness to our disaster survivors, because with annual leave, that many also could not work the overtime.
Is it fair to say that in summer 2020, the Office of Disaster Assistance had a lot of work due to the COVID pandemic?
Absolutely.
In fact, at that time, were staff in ODA having to work mandatory overtime?
Yes.
Is the staff still having to work mandatory overtime?
Yes.
Okay, and you testified earlier about some instances of AWOL involving Ms. Kouemo. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to direct you to tab 33, and it's going to be page 27. Just let me know when you're there, please.
Okay, I'm there.
All right. Do you see the email from, it's near the top of page 27. It's from you to Ms. Kouemo on Sunday, July 19th. That starts, please send me a brief explanation.
Yes.
Okay. When you sent Ms. Kouemo that request, did you expect her to provide a truthful response?
Yes.
Okay. My apologies. If we go up to the next page, then these are, this is towards the bottom of page 26 of tab 33. Are these the responses Ms. Kouemo provided to you?
I believe so.
Okay. There's an entry for 717, and Ms. Kouemo says, came in late, called, left VM, and emailed my TL around 7:30 to 8 a.m. to inform her of my expected tardiness due to a personal non-medical emergency. TL responded and confirmed receipt of notification. Did I read that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. In that paragraph, did Ms. Kouemo explain what the personal non-medical emergency was?
No, she did not.
Did Ms. Kouemo ever explain to you what the personal emergency was?
No, she did not.
If Ms. Kouemo had told you that the personal emergency was applying for another job, would that have been something that qualified as a, quote, personal non-medical emergency?
Just as I believe the previous email states, it would have needed to go up for management review, for management to consider that additional explanation. It was not pre-approved annually, so it would have gone to Bruce to review and consider.
Okay, and I believe you testified to this earlier, but you and Mr. Martin counseled Ms. Kouemo on the phone about leave, is that correct?
It was either on the phone or via Teams.
Okay. But you were speaking with her?
Yes.
Over audio?
Yes.
Okay. Did Ms. Kouemo tell you that she was recording that conversation?
No. We have an overall policy not to record conversations, either us or the people that we're speaking to.
Then I'll ask you, did she ask your permission to record it?
No.
And would you have granted her that permission if she had asked?
No, based on the overall policy about not recording conversations, no.
Okay. To your knowledge, Ms. Rivera, in July of 2020, was the leave policy of ODA applied to Ms. Kouemo as it would have been applied to others?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever learn that Ms. Kouemo had raised any questions about the use of a particular version of IRS Form 4506-T?
Not during her employment here.
Okay. Have you ever learned of it since then?
Maybe in conversations tied to this, or maybe I was asked a deposit. I don't remember.
Okay. How did you learn that Ms. Kouemo had left her employment at the agency?
After she left, I was told that she had left. I don't remember how long after.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe that Ms. Kouemo did not leave her employment voluntarily?
As far as I know, she resigned.
Right, and I believe that's my question. Do you have any reason to believe that
No.
resignation was not voluntary?
No.
And did you in any way retaliate against Ms. Kouemo?
No.
Your Honor, I believe that's all of my questions.
All right, is there any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Okay. Ms. Rivera, Mr. Scott Windows Byers, did he ever, was he ever detailed from the accounts department to the loan processing department in 2020, between April 2020 and August 2020?
What I believe was happening at that time is he was handling like the telework request and maybe timekeeping for periods of time for some of our employees that were detailed over to the processing department, but you would need to speak directly with him. He was never detailed to processing to make any policy and procedure determinations or supervise employees on subject matter to my knowledge.
Okay. Was he then a supervisor for accounts department employees that were temporarily transferred to the loan processing department for a number of weeks?
Well, like I said, he may have been handling some time and attendance, some telework, some administrative functions, but for more information on exactly what he was doing, you may need to speak with him.
Okay. Are you aware of any, how how many, if you had to estimate, how many different functions do people, how many different titles do people hold at the PDC office? Meaning besides like management, outside of management, besides attorneys and paralegals, how many other titles or functions do you think roughly they are over there?
Objection relevance.
And my next, sorry, Judge. My next question was going to be, are you aware, actually I'm going to just ask you that, are you aware of any task at the SBA, at the PDC office more specifically, that is not important to the mission of the SBA?
Even our support functions are, crucial in our normal operations of our office.
Would that include people, for example, handling the mail?
Well, if people didn't handle the mail to give us the mail, we wouldn't be able to assist borrowers.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for answering that question. I believe you said that, did I hear you correctly when you said that you've handled, you've contacted at least 20 people on sick leave. Was that, did you mean since the beginning of the pandemic, or did you mean in 2020?
No, that would have been since we were requested to make those kind of contacts with employees.
Okay, and are you still requested to make those types of contacts with employees?
Maybe not the exact same contact, because as you know, as the disaster continues to evolve and as different kind of federal guidelines may change a little bit, some of our questions and information that we're requesting from employees may change slightly, but overall confirming potential COVID exposures, yes.
Okay. So it is your testimony that there wasn't a guidance at the PDC coming from upper level management, specifically saying not to contact people that were on sick leave.
Can you rephrase the question?
Would you remember whether, can you say whether there could have been guidance from management at the PDC that instructed that basically allowed people only to how do I say that? Only to talk to teammates when they were out sick, meaning that they did not have at all to request that information, to request that permission from supervisors.
I didn't follow that question, Ms. Kouemo. I don't know if it's possible to rephrase it.
Yes, I'm going to actually ask another question, please. Is it your testimony that since the beginning of the pandemic, you've only had 20 people that were out sick?
No, I would say at least 20 people had indicated or if possible had COVID exposure.
Okay,
that I needed to
okay.
make those kind of, I think that question was about specific COVID exposure.
Okay, okay. Alright, and during the early days during the first, say April to August 2020, or during the specific time that I was under your leadership at the SBA in 2020, was there a protocol for employees that wanted to go back to the office? Was there a protocol they had to follow, even if they were coming in for just one day?
I don't remember when the protocol came out that if you wanted to come in, these are the things that you should do, and here's who you should get approval from. I don't remember exactly when that protocol and guidance was issued.
would that protocol, did that protocol involve, whenever it was issued, did it involve answering whether you have COVID or whether you've had direct exposure to COVID?
That would have been one of the potential questions the supervisor would ask an employee who wanted to re-enter the offices.
Okay. Can I ask whether how would you regarding my leave request for say for example the one where I disclosed that I had a personal emergency that will keep me away from work for 2 hours. How it was that the first time that somebody had used the term personal emergency when requesting leave?
I don't recall.
Okay. How do you understand the meaning of the term personal emergency? Just a general definition.
I wouldn't be able to define what a personal emergency was from one person to another, which is why we traditionally ask for more information if someone doesn't really indicate what the absence was for.
Okay. What do you understand the term emergency to mean?
It could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Well, generally, what do you remember? What do you understand the term emergency to mean?
I don't really understand. You just want me to tell you what I think an emergency is?
No, not to give you an example, but that's fine. I'm going to move on to the next question. Do you believe that employees at the SBA have any right at all to privacy?
Can you be more specific?
Yes. Do you believe that employees at the SBA have any rights as to personal privacy?
Yes, but I also believe that the SBA has a right to an explanation if someone is asking for an annual leave request.
And so when somebody is asking for an annual leave request, do you believe that the person should disclose the details, the exact details, or the full details of what the request is? They always have to do so?
Well, I think the distinction is an annual leave request that you're asking for ahead of time versus a request that was not made ahead of time. If someone makes an annual leave request and doesn't disclose what it's for, and that leave request is denied, the employee can also come in and give more explanation. They can also request an annual leave request and it be approved. But I don't believe that's the situation that happened on the 17th. There was not a request for annual leave made ahead of time.
Okay. And do you remember whether at that time I had things like, say, sick leave available?
I believe that the email with the explanation said it was a non-medical emergency.
Yes, but do you remember whether I had? I'm going to ask another question. Can somebody use annual leave credits to cover for sick leave?
If someone puts in an annual leave request and doesn't explain what it's for, I wouldn't know whether it's sick leave or not. But if someone who is sick and wants to choose to take annual leave instead, that can be considered as well. But it would still be considered an annual leave request for the 2 hours or the 4 hours. It's still an annual leave request.
Okay. Just a moment, please. If you please open tab number 49, page 21.
Just a second. Need some water. Which tab was it?
49.
And you said page 21?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Would you please just maybe look quickly at that, scroll down a little bit, then.
Is that the page with a picture on it?
Yes, it is the page with the picture.
Okay.
Your Honor, I object. This is an article of some sort from 2016, and it's talking about mental health that would go to damages, which I believe you specifically ordered were not an issue in this hearing. So I'm just very confused where we're going with this.
Well, there hasn't been a question yet, Mr. Howell, so let's give her a chance to ask a question, and then we'll see if an objection is appropriate.
Very well.
Ms. Rivera, as a manager at the as a supervising attorney at the PDC, what type of training do you receive? I'm going to be more specific. Do you receive training on how would I say that? On how to handle things like how to handle people, how to talk to people, how to manage a team. Do you receive a general management trainings at all?
Yes.
Would you then be able to determine whether when assigning an attorney to a data entry task, when they really don't use any part of their much of their intellect, would you have received? I mean, would you not be aware of the fact that you play on their mental health?
Well, I just want to. I'm confused about the characterization about a data entry position that doesn't, how you characterize that. In which role are you indicating that to be the case? Are you talking about you specifically, or is this hypothetical?
When moving, I'm going to just rephrase the question this. When moving me from the data entry, from the team where Mr. Mongoy was the team lead, to the team where Ms. Holloway was the team lead, did you wonder how it would affect my mental health as an attorney?
It was a needed position, a critical position in the funding team, working very hot files. No, I didn't think it would have any impact on anyone's mental health doing this important COVID response because of that particular role.
Is it your expectation as an attorney, as a supervising attorney, that anybody that is assigned to that is hired by the PPC will do anything they are asked of, regardless of the nature of the task or the duration of the task?
The task that was being performed on the funding team was being performed by attorneys and paralegals in the accounts department. and it was an accounts department function. So these are functions that are completely within what the accounts department was doing and being performed by both attorneys and paralegals.
Who assigned people to those teams? Who determined who went to that team? When you say it was performed by attorneys and paralegals, were you not the one that basically had the last say so as to who went to that team?
And which team?
The team where Ms. Holloway was the supervisor.
Was based on feedback, production, how people were doing, and people who would benefit from working with Carol Holloway, hopefully, in improving their skills.
So, have you had any mental health type, how was it that employee well-being or mental health training as a manager? Have you received any type of training regarding the mental health and the well-being of the people under your supervision?
Objection, relevance.
I'm going.
Yeah, I sustain that.
Okay. Miss Rivera, would it be surprising to you to hear that somebody that was assigned to certain team, or somebody that was I'm sorry. I'm trying to phrase it, but I'm not finding the right words. Yes, I'm going to ask you, Ms. Weaver, in your experience as a supervisor, would you say that a mental health crisis can cause a personal emergency, or can be related to a personal emergency?
Mental health, I think, is a health issue if you're asking me that. I also know that we have an employee assistance program that if an employee expresses those kind of concerns, we typically do a referral to the employee assistance program. Is that what you're asking?
Would something like that potentially qualify as an emergency? I'm not saying a personal emergency, I'm not saying a medical emergency, just an emergency in general. Would it be conceivable to you that a mental health crisis, or that events related to a mental health crisis could qualify as an emergency?
Question, relevance. We haven't talked about a mental health emergency that I'm aware of.
I'll allow her to answer. You can answer if you can, Ms. Rivera.
I think it would be very fact-specific and what the agency knew at the time and what was going on at the time. But if an employee says, you know, I'm in crisis, I need to see my counselor, or I need to take some time, then absolutely we would consider that situation.
Thank you, Ms. Weaver. I think I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Howell, do you have recross?
Yes, ma'am, just a few. Ms. Rivera, is it a practice of yours to deem certain employees at ODA as more important than other employees?
Absolutely not.
Has it ever been a practice of yours at ODA to consider those who are attorneys to somehow be more important than other employees?
No.
Did you or have you ever considered those at ODA whose work involves any sort of data entry to somehow be less important than other employees?
No. Absolutely not.
Would you expect someone who told you that they had a personal emergency to be telling the truth? That is, that there was an actual emergency underlying it?
Yes. And as far as data entry goes within Rapid, Every single group is doing data entry on Excel spreadsheets, every single one of them.
And finally, to your knowledge, Ms. Rivera, did the SBA ever assign Ms. Kouemo to any task with the intent to cause her mental distress?
No.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Rivera, I appreciate your testimony here this evening. Please don't discuss your testimony with anyone who is not now present until this hearing is concluded, which will be later this evening. You are released and you may exit the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera.